What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on the 9th episode of Rant On. And, it seems just like a few months ago, just like football season, we just started this adventure. And here we are, 8 months, or eight months, eight episodes, 9 episodes in now. This is the ninth one. And, it always seems like football never seems to last long enough, for me anyway. I mean, a few months ago, like I said, we were just starting this. And now we're already done. We're wrapping it up. We just wrapped up the regular season, and NFL season isn't too far behind the NCAA season. So, on today's agenda, here's what we got. So first, we're going to review the conference games from last weekend. And yes, I'm going to take a little bit of extra time on Alabama and Georgia today because I have a few things that I want to get off my chest. And I also have a few thoughts on the Heisman race as well. Then we'll wrap it up. But guys, all right, so let's just jump right in here. First things first, conference winners from last week. We'll skip the embarrassment that is Oregon. And we're just going to attribute that loss to Mario Cristobal looking ahead to Miami. Maybe Miami had already approached him and said, hey, we might want you down here. And he said, all right, well, let me think about it. Let me get through this game. And apparently it was on his mind the entire game instead of the actual game. So nonetheless, not to take anything away from Utah because Utah is very, very close to making the playoffs. Like if this was an 8-team playoff, like we've discussed in the past, Utah would probably be making it. And they're very close. They are very close. But they still, they're going to play Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. So that'll still be pretty fun to watch. And I hope they win. Why not? I hope they win without their coach. Who needs him? But moving on, how about Baylor? Now, Baylor was interesting. Speaking of being close to being in the playoffs, again, if it was an 8-team playoff, Baylor would probably be in. But, I wasn't expecting them to win the Big 12, I'll be honest. At the beginning of the year, that's for sure. And friendly reminder from the Big 12, speaking of the beginning of the year, is that Spencer Rattler was the favorite to win the Heisman. So let's just take a moment and reflect on that. Okay. So like I said, he was the favorite to win the Heisman, and he didn't really last halfway. We could kind of give him halfway into the season if we're being nice, but whatever. But anyway, as I was watching this, I'll admit I was rooting for Baylor. If Baylor won, that would have given Alabama a little bit of breathing room had they lost to Georgia. Now, I wasn't thinking that they were going to, but hypothetically, you got to always have a backup plan, right? So I was looking for that loss, and I was looking for the Michigan loss. Thankfully, neither one of them had to happen. But nonetheless, I was rooting for Baylor in this game. I like Baylor. They're a cool team. But how can you not like Gundy too, though? He's one of my favorite coaches of all time. That mullet needs to be in the Hall of Fame before he is. And they're both two really fun teams. But so moving on, though, Baylor is going to play Ole Miss. I'm not giving Baylor too much of a chance in that just because Lane Kiffin's offense is pretty hard to stop. And it should be a fun one, though. I mean, Baylor's defense shows up at times, especially against Big 12 teams, which typically have high-powered offenses. So we'll see. Maybe it should be a good, fun matchup. But that being said, though, I'm not really giving them a ton of a chance. But another surprise of the season is Pitt, of all teams, Pittsburgh Panthers, won the ACC. And for the first time ever at that. And that one's a nice surprise, though, because I think people were getting tired of seeing Clemson win it every year. And which I realize me saying that is a tad ironic, being that I'm an Alabama fan and we win it every year, nearly. But it happens, though. I mean, people do get tired of the same teams every year, and I understand that. And so it's nice to see a little bit of a change coming from the ACC. So congrats to Pitt, and congrats to Kenny Pickett as well. He also got an invite to New York. He was on our list at one point this year. So, I mean, I think the guy deserves it, and with a name like that, I can't wait to see what the guy does in the NFL. I mean, he's going to be, Kenny Pickett. It's just a guy that throws bombs. I mean, he's going to be fun to watch. I think one of the teams that was most disappointing this year, though, it's got to be Iowa. And I say that because it just seems like every single year they don't really live up to the hype. It doesn't seem like they can get quite to the top of the mountain. It's almost as if they are, let's just take, I don't know, any mountain, Everest. And you're at the last rest stop before you get to the top of the mountain, right? Like, this is it. We know this is the top almost. We got one more area to go and we're good. We're there. We're done. but they just can't. They just can't get up to the top of the mountain. They can see people going up there, like the Ohio States and the Michigans, but they themselves can't get up there. Now they always have a few upsets every year, but they just, for the most part, can't get through the biggest ones. They can't get through the Ohio States. They can't get through the Michigans. Sometimes they can't get through the Penn States. Now I realize, like I said, sometimes they will upset the prior teams mentioned, but nonetheless, it just seems that this team is very close every year to winning the Big Ten, and I want to see them do it. I would like for this the same reason I wanted to see Pitt win this year. I mean, I'm getting tired of seeing Ohio State win it. Now this year, I know Michigan won it, and that was exciting, and they are new and different. But as far as that being said, I was really hoping Iowa would at least make a game out of the Michigan game and give them a run for their money, but they did the exact opposite of that. And they got beat very badly. But on the other side of things, I think we underestimated Michigan a tad this year. I mean, like I said, that Aiden Hutchinson kid is pretty good, and he is going to New York this year. And I mean, this is probably Jim. Maybe this is Jim. I don't know. Jim. It's either him or his brother, but one of the Harbaugh brothers. This is probably the best Michigan team he's ever had, and they look great. And while I don't think that they'll beat Georgia, I hope they can at least make it a game because it'd be fun to watch. I like this Michigan team. I really do. And it'd be fun to see Georgia get beat up a little bit more. But speaking of Georgia, ran on section, Alabama, Georgia last week. Here we go. I just want to start off by saying I want everybody that said Georgia would destroy us or Georgia would blow us out of the water to quit commentating on college football for forever. And I don't think that's too much of an ask. Am I going to act like I personally knew this was going to be a blowout? No, I did not know that. I think my personal guess was Alabama 2017. But if you watch football at all, like college football anyway, at all, you should know, or you should have known, that Georgia hasn't played anybody with a decent offense like this entire year. Before that Alabama game, the best offense that they had played was Tennessee, who I think at the time was averaging 37.5, 38.5 points a game, something like that. I think they put up 17 against them, but against Georgia, and that was it. Like that was the best offense that they played the entire year. You can't throw Clemson in there because Clemson's offense was just dismal this year and just was absolute garbage. And can you really throw Kentucky in there? I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean, Tennessee too. I mean, here's what I'm saying is and I'm not trying to take anything away from Georgia here because they did look great. They looked very elite. But if Tennessee, not to be confused with Texas, if UT is the best offense that you have to play, folks, your defense is not as good as you think it is. It is not elite in any means. I mean, it might be good. It might be pretty good the entire year, but it's UT. A team who was not really anywhere near the rankings. A team who, not like Alabama. I mean, none of these teams were like Alabama in the sense that Alabama had a much higher power offense than anybody in the SEC East, that's for sure, and most teams in the country. So I'm just confused as to why everybody just wrote Alabama off immediately. And I think half of it is that people are just so ready to write off Alabama that they just start to do it prematurely. And I just don't think that people looked at the facts on this one. They didn't, and it's poor journalism, honestly. And it's just what it is. What it is. But here's the thing: I also I never, ever, ever want to hear Davis for Heisman ever again out of any Georgia fan's mouth ever again, or any beat writer's mouth ever again. If you're a Georgia fan, maybe let's just take a step back this year, guys, and realize that you're not Alabama. And you're not ever going to be Alabama. And I realize I'm going to eat these words if they win the national championship. However, one national championship, Alabama has how many since 2012? I mean, I could read them off, but I'm not going to. It might take a while. But anyway, I'm just saying, this is what Georgia fans, and just let me rant about Georgia fans a little bit here. There's a little bit more. Here's what they do every year. And it's a little bit like Mets fans, but it's in the sense that every year They look great on paper. And they start off really hot, right? They start off really, really well. But then, well, in the Mets case, it's usually injuries. But in Georgia's case, they finally have to run into a good team to play, which is, it just always happens to be Alabama. And it's usually in the SEC championship. Now, stop me if you've heard this before, but why should Georgia have any idea as to why they should win this game? I don't know. But I've got my list here. I've got a list. I keep looking over here. And I've pointed out 4 pretty crushing defeats over the past 9 years, really. So starting in 2012, right? So this is just between Alabama and Georgia. This is just between these two teams, like over the past 8-9 years, right? And if you're a Georgia fan, I really hope you're listening. Let's start. 2012 SEC Championship, Alabama 32, Georgia 28. Georgia had a 21-10 lead going into the third quarter. Alabama won because of poor clock management. I think Aaron Murray dumped one off to Todd Gurley, if I remember correctly, and Todd Gurley got tackled inbounds. The clock ran out, and it just kind of ended. It was a weird finish to that. But anyway, moving on. 2017 National Championship. Alabama 26, UGA 23. Georgia up 20-7. Excuse me. Georgia was up 20-7 at some point. Tua replaced Jalen. This was the infamous 2nd and 26 play. I know you guys know what happens. Alabama wins in overtime. Later the next season, 2018 SEC Championship. Alabama 35, Georgia 28. Now, this one was a little bit reverse. Tua gets injured. Jalen comes in. Jalen scores a rushing touchdown with around a minute left to win. And, beats him 35-28. And just last week, Alabama 41, Georgia 24. So until any of these results start to change, until Georgia even gets one game on us, by the way, we're on a streak of 7. I don't know if I've said that already, but we are on a streak of 7 against Georgia. Until you guys get one, maybe just be happy that you're the best team in the East and be done with it. Just saying. Not trying to be mean, but every time you play Big Bad Bama, Kirby can't do it. Kirby cannot beat Saban. Not yet, anyway. But anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to the Heisman talk. I won't say a whole lot about this, except for I don't know what Aiden Hutchinson is doing in this list. I know he's good, but our Heisman voters really so disillusioned that this is the 4 that they came up with. Did they just watch like the last 3 weeks of football and submit their votes? Or did they watch the whole entire season? Because if they did, they didn't watch the same one I did. Because there were a few people on here that were a lot more deserving. But if we had voters that, looked at statistics and used logic and common sense, then we would have 4 very different finalists. Aiden Hutchinson, like I said, would be nowhere. He wouldn't even be near the finalists if we looked at it that way. And I think he's great. Sure. I don't know. Let's take, and I know this is going to be a little bit obvious of who I'm comparing here. But I'm just run through 2 people right here. All right. Candidate A. You just have 2 candidates. Candidate A, 91 tackles, 31.5 tackles for loss, 15.5 sacks. Now let me repeat that. 91 tackles, 31.5 tackles for loss, and 15.5 sacks. Now, candidate B, 58 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, 14 sacks. He's beating him in every category. And not only that, some of the numbers he's generating, or some of the numbers candidate A is generating, have been better than Ndamukong Suh, better than Chase Young, and better than even Aaron Donald. And I realize that comparing a linebacker to a D lineman is a little bit different, and I understand that. But regardless, candidate A is having an incredible season, is blowing literally everybody else out of the water. But candidate B is the one going to New York. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Bryce is going to win regardless. So I ultimately, you could say it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, like, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to go to this event and represent your school and your family and your friends and, everybody else that's connected to you. And by not having the four best players go, I think it's just it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the voters, honestly. Like, what are you even doing? Like, if there were a lot of people that were left off of this list that were well more deserving than Aiden Hutchinson and even CJ Stroud, in my opinion. CJ Stroud, in my opinion, and nothing against him, I just don't think he's even the best player on the team. Like, he's surrounded by greatness. And I mean, if you watched him at all this year, he just throws it up and somebody's open. Every time somebody's wide open. And like I said, he's got to be a good quarterback to still complete those throws, but I don't think he's even the best athlete on the team. So, in my opinion, here's a few names of people that were left off that were a little bit more deserving, in my opinion. Kenneth Walker, who we've been talking about multiple times this year. Matt Corral, who has been on our Heisman list almost the entire year. And here's one too, and a lot of people, nobody has mentioned him, which I realize it's Western Kentucky, but still, Western Kentucky quarterback. His name's Bailey Zappe, something like that. Western Kentucky quarterback, 5,500 yards, 56 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Kid can sling the ball, and he hadn't really even been mentioned much this year. And it just seems to me like, I don't know, maybe the voters just wanted to have somebody in Michigan like that was represented. Maybe it was just part of the participation trophy era where, like, oh, well, Michigan doesn't have anybody. We should throw somebody in there. Yeah. But you'd think if that was the case, then I mean, hell, even the quarterback from Cincinnati deserves a chance too. I mean, I think he's better than CJ Stroud, in my opinion. Throw him in there. I mean, at least he made it. But if it were my personal four, it would be Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Kenneth Walker, and Kenny Pickett. And I think that's the three or four of the most dominant players like in the entire country. But I don't know. I think it's time we get different voting rules. I think it's time maybe we switched up the voters. Maybe we made sure that they watched more than the last 2 to 3 weeks of college football. I don't know. I watch it the entire year, and I'm just a little confused. But I don't know. That's why I'm not paid to do it, I guess. But anyway, that'll just about wrap up this episode, guys. Remember to check us out on social media and give us a like and a follow. We're just about on everything like Facebook, Twitter, everything, except for TikTok. TikTok, if I'm being honest, still scares me a little bit. Does that make me old now? It's possible, but maybe one day. I don't know. It scares me for now. There's just a lot happening on it. All right, there's a lot happening. But anyway, also, I'm not too sure how many episodes will be coming out over the holidays, but keep an eye out for more content. I'm going to try to come out with at least one before the New Year's games and a little bit more on the NFL too, now that we're getting close to playoff times for that as well. And look for content more. I'm gonna try to do a little bit of maybe a couple of playoff brackets for the NFL, and soon we're going to start transitioning into basketball too. So if that's your thing, keep listening. It'll be happening in a couple months, maybe. Well, really, probably just a month or so. But guys, that's about it. Thank you for listening, and yeah, that's it. Thanks.